All right. Well, I don't know how to even. Thank you for doing the show.
Of
How you want to
course.
do this? Do I? Can I call you Leah? Do we got to go professional names? Do we say Lefreque? How
You
do we
can
do
call me
this?
whatever you want,
All right.
as
Let's
long as you
go.
call.
Okay. I'm gonna alternate as we go. I like Leah. We look here. It is. This your first time on the show. I thank you for doing this, and I thank you for giving me a little bit of your time for this interview. But we gonna
Yeah.
have some fun today.
Awesome.
Alright, so let's do this.
I'm
Before we
down.
jump into the questions and jump into your history and all the other good stuff, please give the super plug, big plug, anything. Leah, Lefreque, your IG, your Twitter, your album, super plug. Go ahead.
Okay, so you can find me everywhere at Lefreque, L and then Freak with a Q. So it's Lfreaq. Yep, you can find me anywhere under that. And I am coming out with my first single in a while in June. I just released a single called Make Me Move. So you can check that out everywhere: Spotify, Apple Music, all the good stuff.
Alright, cool. And thank you for that. I have to ask this question. Let's jump into this podcast. Let's have some fun.
Awesome.
Leah, and I need you to be 100% with me.
Yeah.
First question. Is
Okay.
Brooklyn in the house?
Brooklyn in the house.
Is Brooklyn in the house?
That's awesome.
Let's go. Like, I have to do this. I want to thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time, especially in the middle of a pandemic. But you're performing at Set Break, which is a live stream event on Twitch, and it gives awareness to mental health, and especially in the middle of COVID, where people have been wilding crazy. I've
Man.
known a few people that went crazy myself, just due to everything. But first question: how have you been during the pandemic? And B, what made you want to do this? What made you want to give your time and effort to a cause like this?
Yeah, well, to answer question A, the first part of the pandemic was kind of tough, I think, for most people, like it was for most people. And I was just trying to figure everything out. I couldn't perform live, which was kind of half of what I was doing at the time, and figuring out how to survive as a musician in the kind of new world that we were seeing. So at first it was tough, but over the last year, I've really figured out some cool ways to collaborate with people, cool ways to make music, and I can honestly say that I'm so much happier than when the pandemic hit. Uh, Even before, so like I feel like I 10 times my happiness, so it feels really good. And to answer the second part of your question, I really wanted to do this set break show because I don't know a single person in the music industry who doesn't struggle with their mental health. So it feels like the most important thing for us to talk about in the music industry. I mean, artists can be tortured souls, and I feel like they really need that environment that loves and nurtures them. So I wanted to bring awareness to that.
That's cool. And quite honestly, I was doing some homework on you a little bit while I was listening to some of your music, and I just kind of like locked down the freak time where I went old school stuff. I went to the Spotify stuff. I went to some of the stuff on YouTube, just kind of like all things LaFreak.
Awesome.
And as I was doing my homework, I found out that you started pretty young when you were like really starting like around 14, 15, 16. And I'm
Yeah.
very curious, where did your persona LaFreak come from? What was the origin story? Because I've kind of seen Leah in
Hmm.
past interviews and stuff I read, and LaFreak is a totally different person. It's like two sides of the same coin. So I'm very
Yeah.
curious. What's the origin story of LaFreak?
Well, Lefreque started in New York, and I was going out to all these clubs. I was partying a lot, and I was really into this kind of darker, sexier scene. And I just really, really liked that vibe, and I thought it could really resonate with the right people. And the music that I was wanting to make was a lot darker, a lot grittier. And so I changed the name to Lefreque, and I just felt like I kind of wanted this persona to perform under because I am a huge fan of Prince, David Bowie, Madonna, all these people, Lady Gaga, that have this kind of overarching kind of caricature that they can perform through. So I wanted that kind of funnel for myself instead of just being like Leah, the girl that like sings and plays guitar in the corner. Like I wanted this
Yeah,
bigger thing.
but because there is such a difference of that, because there are, well, obviously audio and video of you more like Leah. I'm separating the two. You're the same person, I think, but
Yeah.
I'm separating the two because like Leah is kind of like everyday people who just so happen to play guitar. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Lefreque, and I was watching some just stuff online where people took a picture of your show, and it's such a visual style. I'm not exactly sure how to convey it without actually see it. It's very playful. It's
Mm.
shocking, a tad bit confusing, and I gotta be honest. That level of performance art, was that you shooting for it? Was that like, I need to get out of my comfort zone? So you're coming with me.
Yeah. Honestly, it was a little bit of everything. I wanted to break out of that kind of singer-songwriter lane. And when I was growing up, everybody pegged me as that kind of Nora Jones. And I love Nora Jones, but I wanted to be more like a Madonna. And I wanted to be kind of like this performer that has visual aspects and you never know what she's going to come out with next. And I wanted that persona, essentially.
And well, Leah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Because if I'm at any time, if I'm wrong about this, just say no. You're totally wrong. Like when listen to your music, there's elements of soul, jazz, pop, sorta dark pop, but it's pop nonetheless. It's Here's how I put it like this, and I assume, you know what they say about assuming, but I assume these are influences. It's like if Nick Cave and Sade had a love child and let Grace Jones babysit. Like,
I love
that's you.
that. I
Are
need to
those
quote you on
accurate? Or are
that.
those good influences? How are we going with
That's
that?
amazing. I'm absolutely obsessed with all three of those people. I actually saw Nick Cave perform live at the Atlantic Barclays the day that my last EP came out, and it was like a spiritual experience. It was like the coolest show that I'd ever seen. So I really think of him super highly, and obviously also Sade and Grace Jones are idols of mine. So it's
Yeah,
very accurate.
I've seen. Thanks. See, I just kind of like mash those together, put them in a blender from what I'm saying, because a lot of the stuff it's like, and I'm only referencing him because I just named him, but like Nick Cave is a guy in concert. Before he opens his mouth and says anything, it's almost like a sign that says, not only am I cooler than you, at
Mm,
any given time tonight, I could come off this stage and punch you in the face and leave, and no one's going to do anything. In fact, they're going to applaud it.
yeah.
So that's where I get, because when I watch you live, there is watching you live and hearing you are two very different things. And watching you live, there's a lot of theatrics. There's a lot going on. Just case in point, there's a lot going on. But and granted, this may have been a clip, this may have been whatever. It almost seemed as though it doesn't matter. It could have
Mm,
been 48 million people in an arena or four. That
mm.
same energy is coming out, and you just better be ready for it. So I'm curious, do you adjust yourself depending on the people, or is it just, this is what we said we were going to do, we're going to do this?
Nope. If I'm performing, like you said, to four people, I'm performing to an arena in my brain, and that's always kind of how it's been for me. I grew up a theater kid, and that's kind of where Le Freak came from as well. When I was in high school, I did a performance of a show called Cabaret,
Hey,
and I played a character called the MC who kind of leads people through the whole play and is this kind of trickster, dark, mysterious kind of character. and he's a man traditionally in the performance, and I felt like when I was able to play that role, it was like kind of this cool gender bending, mysterious, freaky experience, and I wanted to kind of bring that to the performance. So whether it's three people, four people, or 4,000, it's going to be the same.
I didn't know that, and this is not one of my questions, so I'm just going to kind of shoehorn this one in there. But it takes
Yeah.
one to know one. I'm a bit of a theater nerd myself,
Okay.
and off the top of the dome, there's no wrong answers. You could change your mind tomorrow. If you had to hold someone by the hand and take them to three, count them, three Broadway performances where you're just like, this is what I like, this is what it is, deal with it. What's your three?
Oh man, as corny as it sounds, my first ever musical theater love was Phantom of the Opera.
Yep,
I
here
would take
too.
them to
Yep.
that one. And the chandelier falling at the beginning of the first act gives makes me cry every time. So that one, number one. Number two would probably be I loved Kinky Boots, and I just love everybody in that performance. And if I could, I would probably the third one take them to see Cabaret with Alan Cumming on Broadway, which I got to see a couple, or probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it was just so incredible.
Okay, you took one of mine. Obviously, Phantom. It's hacky for a reason. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It really is. Now, here's where it gets. I get a little. I'm going to take Phantom off the table. I'm going to take Phantom off the table because you already
Okay.
used that. Number one with a bullet. You got to see Miss Saigon.
I've never seen that.
Okay,
I
do
gotta see
it.
it
I
then.
don't know what streaming service you got. It's probably on one. I'm so sure of it. Check it out. There has to be one by now.
Yeah,
Not the movie. There is a movie. I'm talking about the
the
actual
show.
recording of the show. Go check
Okay.
that out. I probably influenced three new songs.
Okay.
Um, okay, you got to see The Lion King. I know
That
we're
one's
all kids
great.
at heart. You just plain got to see it. And this is my tie-in to you a little bit because I would think this would have been in your top three. Theater nerd, no theater nerd. Les Miserables. If I could talk today. Les Miserables. I
Les
would have.
Miserables
I
is
really
great.
thought. I was like, okay, is Lefreque, the French connections there. She's totally gonna name that.
Yeah, I
But
mean, they're all so good, you know.
okay, homework assignment. Gotta watch Miss Saigon. But um, now that we got that, now back to my regular scheduled questions. Now seeing you is one thing, but hearing you is a totally different beast. Because if I close my eyes, I'm kind of, the theater aspect of it is taken away from these lyrics that are so personal.
Mm.
Like really super personal. There are a diary, there's, let me guess. You took poetry in high school. Just tossing it out there.
I did, and
Do
most
it.
of my songs start with poetry.
Okay, but it's not a knock. I'm not knocking you, but there's such raw emotion with that where you explore themes like darkness, mystery, sexuality, just coming out of your own skin and digging. And if you dig even deeper, if you hear these very clever, very educational lyrics. Now, I'm curious, how do you convey that to an audience who may just be looking like, because your live show has this vibe of, man, you're gonna see some wild shit, and then
Yeah.
they're just like, and then you say like something super educational, but you're just taking out your feelings where it's just like, yeah, it got deep real quick. So how do you balance those two worlds?
Um, I don't know. Honestly, I just do what's in my soul in that moment because I've been performing since I was four, and I feel like I've done it enough to where I can just kind of get on the stage and feel like the moment takes me where it needs to go. But it is, it's very personal, and I feel like hopefully the people that are at the show already have a maybe a preconceived view of the songs, and that's what they want to hear, so they're coming to kind of connect with that those lyrics and that emotion.
Okay, all right, because there's a lot of emotion. It's like a
Yeah.
lot. But speaking of that, there are emotions and there are positive ones. And in past interviews, I want to quote you right. And if,
Okay.
again, if I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong. It said you have said, as an ally of everyone on the spectrum of gender, sexuality, bullies, races, and sexes are not allowed in Lefreque's kingdom. Along
Mm-hmm.
with that, we have seen you do the work with obviously the show we're talking about, Set Break. We've seen you do other works with other charities, your own. I mean, your own foundation, your own work. I mean, what is exactly when you. And one thing that you have straight up said, I do not like bullies, period, point blank.
Mm-hmm.
So, LaFreak's Kingdom, where did that, what does it look like? Because I'm so sure there's drawings of it somewhere. What does it look like? Where is it in your mind? And what did you, your spirit of inclusiveness, who did you want? Was that specific or was that something in your life? Or please give me just a breakdown of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, the word freak for me really came about after being bullied in high school. And I was very isolated in high school. I went to a small art school in Phoenix, Arizona, and I felt like I really didn't have that many friends. And I wanted to relate that word to anybody who had ever felt that way, whether it was somebody who's gay, trans, bi, whatever they feel or whatever they identify as queer. I wanted them to feel like they belonged in that kind of umbrella of being a freak and not using it as a bad term, but kind of owning it and subverting that word and going, yeah, I'm a freak of nature. I'm a freak. Like that's what makes me special, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that's kind of what the kingdom represents, and just being super tolerant of other people and their beliefs and their who they want to love, who they want to be, as long as it's not hurting anybody. That's totally okay, you know?
Yeah, everyone celebrates their differences, and I got to do this, Leah. Leave it up to me to hear something that profound and follow it up with something super, super juvenile. I apologize. I don't mean to offend, but it takes a nerd to know a nerd. Growing up, just if you haven't, we're kind of towards the tail end of a pandemic, but you can knock some of this out. You ever read X-Men comics? Or
I
jumped?
haven't, but I've seen pages of it.
Okay. Or the show, or you could just jump the book and just go straight to the show. The reason
Yeah.
I talked about that is because there was a lot of people. Okay, the overarching theme of X Men is discrimination. We have powers. We are superheroes. Some people are just born looking different. They don't want to save the world. They just shoot blast out of their eyes. I can't explain it. I just want to live my life.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is bringing people together, say we could live together. And quite honestly, when you said freak, freak was a bad name for
Mm-hmm.
them because freak just pretty means you're not normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the big thing about, yeah, we're superior because we know what we have and we own it and we're better. Now you can take
Mm-hmm.
that for a metaphor for anything you want.
Yeah.
But I was, it's shot in the dark. I was just like, all right, I nailed it with poetry in high school. Nailed it with the theater nerd thing. Let's go
Yep.
for three.
Yeah, no, okay, so maybe I have to read some X-Men now.
All right, or you could watch the series. I think it's like on Disney Plus or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But here's this part of the podcast where I just like to ask questions. This is the section I like to call things I read on the internet.
Okay.
Now, this is up to you to confirm and deny if this is true, that this happened, is there a story, whatever. Okay?
Okay. Love it.
Things I read on the internet. Number one, as a child, you sung with the pop group ABBA.
I did. I
Serious.
did.
There has to be a story to that. Please, go ahead.
I was, I think, 5 or 6 years old, and I sang with them in my hometown of Phoenix, Arizona. They were on tour and they wanted a choir of children to back them up for several songs. So I sang with ABBA.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah, it
awesome.
was special.
Um, Now this I kind of knew, but it's like a two-part question. Your single "I've Become a Thief" was used in the trailer of the show Riverdale. Comic
Yeah.
nerd, obviously, I am legally obligated to watch Riverdale. How does that feel being associated with the show, or did you read Riverdale, or excuse me, Archie comics, or did you
Archie.
watch the show? Um,
I have to say I was obsessed with Archie when I was growing up, but I've never seen the show. So it was super cool because I've heard that it's kind of like a dark spin-off on Archie and Veronica
yes,
and
it
Betty and
is.
all those people. But I had tons of people coming to my page after that and saying, Archie and Betty and Veronica brought me here. And it was kind of cool to see people's love for the show and how that transcended it into the music that was on it and coming to my page and stuff. It was a
Oh,
fun experience.
okay. Things I read on the internet again. As a budding young performer, your baby toe was just in the water of entertainment.
Uh-huh.
You had a private show for Muhammad Ali.
I did,
How?
yes.
I
A
knew that was a lie.
family.
I knew that was a lie when I read it. I'm sorry, but go ahead, please.
A family friend knew him. Actually, his name is Nick Lowry. He's a football player, and he introduced us. They were having a private party, and they had me come and sing and play for Muhammad. And at that point, he couldn't speak, but he was clapping, and it was incredible. I got to have dinner with him and sit with him, and it was really amazing.
Well, my next question. Okay. When you're performing for the greatest of all times, you have shared the stage with Jacob Dylan, NDRE. Just you've had such an interesting journey thus
Mm.
far. I'm very curious. Are there any other stories throughout your musical career where it was so crazy, so like I like to call those the "I'm not supposed to be here" moment when you're like, wait, if I wrote this down on paper and I thought the Muhammad Ali story was this, no one would believe me. Do you
Wow,
have another one of those, or like,
I feel like the Muhammad Ali one fits that pretty well, but I had another one like that a couple of years later where I performed at Jane Seymour's Open Heart Foundation event in California,
Dr.
and
Quinn?
Jane Seymour, no, yeah, that would be amazing. But that's where I met India Ari, that's where I met Jacob Dylan. I ended up meeting the guy that played Elaine's boss on Seinfeld. I forgot his name. Um,
Peterman! Jay Peterman! I'm
yeah.
sorry, I only know character names. I'm trying to remember his real name. John
Yeah.
something.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
And I met a ton of other people that night. I met Robin Wright, who is on Good
Good
Morning
Morning America,
America.
yeah.
And I was surrounded by all these. Oh, and then that night, I'm a huge fan of Beck. And I got to meet him and take a picture with him, which was very affirming. And he watched me perform, and he came up to me after the show and said, "Never stop," which was really, really cool. So I felt like I was looking around at all these people like, wow, I'm here right now. This is wild.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah.
all right, we're done with the things I read on the internet section, but I will say
They were all
this.
true.
Wow, I know. Um, One thing I like about you, Leah, and I want to say this, and I mean the utmost respect for this because I'm going to have to explain this a little bit.
Okay.
In your career, in a weird way, was one of those few things COVID got right. Because, and I can only speak for myself in this. I learned about you during quarantine. Like your
Mm.
music is on the soundtrack of a lot of stuff I was watching, like Dating Around, Good Trouble. We talked about Riverdale, FBI. You were in the commercial. You're the voice of the voice.
Yep.
And just to name a few, dude, if I after this interview, if I'm watching Jeopardy and you're hosting, we're coming back on this Zoom.
Yeah.
So
I'll come right back.
I'm curious, are there others who found you that way in the middle of lockdown? Or it's like, no, I know that voice. Where do I know this from? And then you kind of stumble on you. Like, I'm one of those nerds
Yeah.
that reads the credits. They're like, oh,
Me
okay.
too.
Yeah.
Me too. And I watch shows with the subtitles on, so I can usually see what the name of the artist is for the song and stuff like that. But yeah, I actually my most recent placement was on a show called Who Killed Sarah on Netflix, and it was number 2 trending the last week. So I've had many people reach out to me because of that, and they're like, "Your voice sounds so familiar. I finally found you," or whatever, you know. So it's kind of funny. But it's been cool to have so many people reach out through things that they found, because inevitably their connection to that show or that movie makes them love the music even more. So it's kind of a cool tie.
Okay. And it
Yeah.
works. It totally works. Now,
Yeah.
one thing I love doing this. We're getting towards the end here. I got two more questions actually, but you started off young, and there's a few people watching us right now, listening to us right now. I'm very curious, out of your crazy way of how things kind of happen for you, what advice would you give someone that's an aspiring singer or songwriter who just like, host, I want to have my music on a comic strip from the 50s? And like, what advice would you give that young budding performer?
The one thing that I would say that I really have had to learn myself, and I'm still learning, is consistency. It doesn't matter if you have never done it before. If you do it every single day for a year, there will be improvement. And sometimes it's hard to see because they're baby steps. But for me, it takes a lot for me to sit down and write a song, because, like you were saying, they're very emotional, and it usually pulls from a deep place. So I'll sit down one day and write a song, and then it'll take me 3 weeks to sit down again. But I've realized if you sit down every single day and you exercise that creative muscle, there's no telling where you'll be in a matter of time. So that's what I would say to younger people who want to pursue it.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I have to ask this question. It's such a hack question, but I want people to be in touch with you. What's next for your career? What are some of the most interesting projects that you're working on that you could talk about right now, if you can? Please go ahead.
Yeah. There's a lot happening this year, which I'm really excited about. I have a single coming out in about 3 weeks with a friend of mine, Colin Smith. It's a duet. So that's going to be the first release. And then the month after, I have another duet coming out with a band friend of mine. Their name is Cool Company. And then the first single from my personal Lefreque music comes in June. And then there will be a single every month after that for 3 months. So there's going to be a lot happening. And I'm
Okay.
excited.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing it. This has been a joy. I gotta say, while we wrap this up or do production, can we play a couple of your songs?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. We always ask because, the Baidu model. You're artist and you're sensitive about your shit. We get it. We understand.
Yes, I love Badu.
So I thank you one more time. But before we get out of here, Liv, please, one more time, super plug all things Lefreque. We know you're going to see you at Backline Set Break in a few days, April 10th. But please give the super plug everything Lefreque. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, if you want to check out my most recent song, it's called Make Me Move. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, and if you want to find me online, you can find me everywhere at Lefreque, Lfreaq. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for showing up and just giving us a little bit of your time, learning the origin stories of Lefreque.
Yeah.
And now I got a new Broadway buddy, so that works for me.
Love it.
All right, have a good one. Talk to you
too.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.